So amid the conflict in West Asia, President Trump seems to be now drawing the line. As far as any pause or a ceasefire talk is concerned, President Trump is of the opinion that we can have dialogue, but he doesn't want ceasefire. He says that you can't talk of a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side and saying that this is not what the U.S. is right now looking out for.
Is calling for a ceasefire in the Middle East and to reopen dialogue. What do you say to post?
Well, look, we can have dialogue, but I don't want to do a ceasefire. You know, you don't do a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side. They don't have a Navy. They don't have an Air Force. They don't have any equipment. They don't have any spotters. They don't have anti-aircraft. They don't have radar. And their leaders have all been killed at every level. We're not looking to do that.
Well, that seems to be the opinion that President Trump has been giving. However, his statements have been constantly chasing with regards of either continuing or hinting at a possible, ending of this military operation that has been conducted with Israel against Iran. Now, President Trump says that, possible military winding down of the operation, saying that the American objectives in Iran have nearly been achieved, while Trump claims that Iran's military capabilities, including its missile systems, Navy and Air Force, has been degraded, asserting that Tehran is no longer a major threat to U.S. interests. But he also says that Iran is not close in acquiring even nuclear weapons. So this is what he has said, point by point, as he has said, that completely degraded Iranian missile capabilities, launchers and everything else pertaining to them, destroying Iran's defense industrial base, eliminating their Navy and Air Force, including anti-aircraft weaponry, never allowing Iran to get even close to nuclear capability, and also saying protecting the highest level of our Middle Eastern allies, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, UAE, Kuwait and others. And the Strait of Hormuz has to be guarded and policed as necessary as far as the nations who actually use it. So there has been contradictions as far as President Trump's statement is concerned, because then there are indications that they are also preparing for full boots on ground kind of a situation. But as far as Strait of Hormuz is concerned, he is saying that it is not the U.S. that uses that passage, and the countries who actually use the passage must come forward and deploy their warships so that the passage can be cleared. This critical waterway can be cleared. But again, speaking of President Trump, in the same breath, he seems to be suggesting that there is no ceasefire, no pause for now, because the opposite side, as far as Iran is concerned, one by one, when it comes to their military capabilities, their leadership is now being eliminated. So heavy preparations for the potential use of ground troops in Iran, saying that the military also held meetings to prepare of how to handle possible detention of Iranian soldiers and paramilitary operatives as President decides to put American boots on the ground, including where Iranians would be sent. So this is another aspect. The U.S. now preparing to deploy elements of the 82nd Airborne Division in the Middle East region, and the planning involves the Army's Global Response Force, where thousands of Marines are now being moved towards the Middle East. Srinjoy, good morning. Contradictory statements coming in. Will this war ever end, or will there be ceasefire, or will there be dialogue in first place?
It's hard to make out if you hear the president over a prolonged period of time, because he says different things at different times. Even his son says that my dad is unpredictable. Now, if the 82nd Airborne, which is along with the 101 Airborne, two of the most famous American divisions, and if the Marines are also moving towards the Persian Gulf, then there is a creation of an option. Now, if you're going to look at boots on the ground, now America hasn't spoken about boots on the ground so much. The Israelis have. Now, if you're looking at boots on the ground, then what kind of boots on the ground? Does it mean just Kharg Island, for example? Does it mean just looking at Iran's nuclear option, the fact that they have a certain amount of uranium, and is it one option to go out there and get it back? Now, it's not going to be easy, of course, or is it going to be boots on the ground for all of Iran, which is a large country, 90 million people? You've destroyed the Navy, yes. You've destroyed the air defense, yes. You've destroyed much of the Air Force, yes. But the army is still there on the ground, and boots on the ground, particularly in urban areas, can mean serious casualties. Is this something the president is keen on?
Right.
Is this something the Republican leadership is keen on? So these are things that have to be looked at, because boots on the ground can be talked about. But on the other hand, how does this war end? Will the Americans just pack up and leave?
No, even if that is a
option too?
situation that develops, if America does decide to pack up and leave, Srinjoy, will Israel, continue or stop also or halt with its operations? Because both sides have been claiming that they have very different objectives. Because for Israel, it's their very existence that is under threat if Iran continues to hit or retaliate at them. But let's get you another assessment as far as U.S. military is also concerned. This is coming in from the military leadership on the impact of the ongoing operations. As I said, it's the 22nd day, and the U.S. Central Command has now shared this latest video and saying that Iranian strike capabilities are now steadily weakening with sustained military action when it comes to degrading Tehran's ability to respond. So far, over 7,000 targets that have now been hit, according to U.S. military, and the operations are now directly hitting at the intended targets, particularly those that are now said to be linked to Iran's naval and missile infrastructure. So more and more updates that are now being shared, saying that it reduces a lot as far as the threat to regional security and also commercial shipping. And when it comes to military objectives of the U.S. forces is concerned, as President Trump says, mainly most of them have now been reached. But there are now bigger developments.